Okay. Oh, sorry about that. I'll just stop and start the recording again. Okay. Hi everybody. The Noyantis weekly user group meeting. Today is Monday the 26th of June 2017 and myself and John are here. As usual, any questions or queries, raise your hand. We can always open the mics up. Questions, queries, problems, ideas, all welcome. Now I know one of the things we've been asked for is basically, can we just do a couple of recaps on the basics, the basic approach to using the templates and the products and how to basically get started, if you will. So now that was requested by one of the attendees here now, so I'm just going to open the mic up, David. Hi, David.
Hi, Andy. Hi, John. Thanks very much.
No problem, no problem. While we're still waiting for other questions, oh, actually, before we go to that, do you mind if I just jump to Pete if he's available? Because
yes.
he asked a question last week. Yeah,
yep.
He asked a question last week, but then he had to leave before the end, and I don't know whether he successfully got the answer he wanted. So,
okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Just mute me off for a moment, Andy, and put me back when you're ready.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Hi, Pete. I'm not sure if you've got a microphone available.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Okay. Hello.
Yeah, we asked a question last week, but I answered the question, but I didn't know if it was correct.
Oh, yeah. Also, in fact, I didn't dare to ask, but it was about report control, and up to now, I made nothing with it because I don't know how to use it. The data, how to do it, how to fill the report with the data from a table.
No problem. Well, one of the things we're going to be doing is the getting started. So we could actually, we'll probably start with an easy one, but I'll cover that today as well. So we'll go through the report controls for basically from the start, step by step. Is that okay?
Would be nice. Yep. No. And a second one was, what's the difference between the task panel and the shortcut bar?
Okay, well, I can fire up an example up here. I think the one we did last week, and then just show you. And let me just do that now. Okay, so in this application, if you watched last week's on catch up, so to speak, we built this and we did some changes and so on. Now the shortcut bar is this control down at the bottom. Technically, it's the whole of the left hand side, and it can contain basically different content. So I think in our example we had one bar. So this is one bar, another bar, another bar, and I think we had a fourth one, if I remember rightly. Oh, there's a fourth one, option. So we can see here, this bar actually contains a task panel. This bar also contains a task panel. This bar contains a date picker, and this bar contains a property grid. But of course, they don't have to be code job controls. They can be clarion controls as well. So if I bring up the example application, just going to run this now. Okay, I think Avast is just going to do it.
I've seen that a lot.
It's magic.
Oh, I have the same, but I hate it.
Yeah, I do. I'm running it from a different place, so okay.
Yeah.
Let me just open it up. So this is the example application that ships with the product, and rather than put another control in there, like the date picker or a property grid or a task panel, you can just put basically some options. So you can make it build you a tree, if you will. So, and the example includes this. And what that does behind the scenes is basically build a clarion list in a tree format, in a tree structure. And when you click on any of the options, it will basically action an event that you have told it to do. So that could be select a tab or run a procedure, run a routine, maybe just increment some values. It's whatever code you want it to do. So basically, it's a form of navigation, the shortcut bar, as is the command bar, as is the task panel. It's just how you want it to look and feel in your application. There is no right or wrong answer on that. It's really down to your requirements and your look and feel, and what you require for your app and what your users like, really.
Yep.
So this example here, you can see it's built in a tree. That also bit more cosmetically pleasing, if you will, with the icons and so on in a tree. And I think there was an example. Yeah, there is an example of the different things you can put in there. So you've seen it can be a tree. You could put actually clarion controls in there. So that is a clarion entry, and that will take place. Oh, I forgot to do the user group. 1 second. So yeah, basically all of the standard clarion controls, because basically it takes the handle of what you pass it and takes ownership of it, if you will, and puts it in the bar. So it will grow accordingly. And we've got a clarion spin control, which it's a little large to be fair, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
So that's a shortcut bar, and realistically, you probably do it along with the actions. So we can see this shortcut bar I've just pressed on the left is told to start a procedure. And this one, it will select some tabs.
Yeah.
Post events. So we can see that button 2 has been pressed, and so on. And it's really whatever you want it to do, but it's just mainly from a navigation point of view.
Okay.
So that is the shortcut bar. Going back to our example here, we've got the task panel. And again, this is really a form of navigation. I think a good example is, say, Microsoft Outlook. If you think of Microsoft Outlook, let me just bring one in here.
Yeah.
Where have we got something? Okay.
So you could say the shortcut bar is for navigation, and the task panel is more to make a a menu.
Yeah, basically, in my example app and in my applications as well, I will use the shortcut bar to categorize the options, and then the task panel to actually perform the navigation.
Yeah.
That's my own personal choice on it. So I think you've got in the latest Outlook, obviously, or newer versions, they've gone from, instead of having the bar, they've gone to this like a bar down at the bottom, if you will, command bar. But historically, they used to have the actual shortcut bars there.
No, I see. I have the same.
Okay. Now the task panel doesn't have to. Its capabilities just to show. And Avast is going to kick in.
Yeah.
I'm running directly off the server, so it's seen it as a new. It's seen it as a new place. So capabilities-wise, of course, you can have standard options, and you can group them. So you can see these are grouped like so. If you've got quite a detailed structure, then I use the shortcut bar because it's friendlier, if you will. The screen isn't as busy, and the user can focus just on the one particular element that they need to focus on. So that's why I use a shortcut bar to do the grouping. And then I use a task panel for the options. And the reason I use the task panel is the task panel will allow your users, if you have it turned on, to move the options around. So I can say, okay, I want that to go down there and that to go down there. And it lets the user personalize the application to their own requirements. I save and restore the settings per user. So when they go into one of the when they go into the system, regardless of which terminal they're on, their settings are saved in the database. So they open the application back up as they left it last time, the night before, the day before, the week before. It's left as they found it, as they like it, and the users really like that. They feel they're getting the input into the system, even though really the control's doing it for you.
Okay.
So that's why I use that. There can be straight options like you've got here, and just like with the shortcut bar and the command bar, you can tell it what action to perform. So it can be go and select a tab, go and run a procedure, and so on. You can put other content in. I'm just thinking, is it in here? Runtime controls. Oh no, that's just an example to show how to add them on the fly, just in case you was building up maybe like a history, a file history. So it could be item 1. We'll just have whichever icon, it doesn't really matter. And then as people go opening documents and so on and so forth, you might let you add on the fly. Oh,
yeah.
That should be in that.
Okay. Nice.
So it lets you. So imagine if it was like a file history, you could build it up and have just one section called history, and then the user gets to see what they've just been doing, and they can click straight back on it and maybe open the document back up, that type of thing.
Yep.
But that wasn't what I was going to show you. It was this one, and it's just like the shortcut bar. The actual content doesn't have to be simple controls and items. You can put Clarion content in here. So I've got a Clarion list box, and I've said this particular item isn't a link or an option. I actually want it to be a Clarion list box, and I just attach it.
Okay.
So it's just giving you the options. Again, I'm not sure whether you want to use that, but if I show you the capabilities, then you can make your own, decisions and choices.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Well, that's the difference between those two. Hopefully, it's helped.
Yeah, a bit.
That's good. That's good.
Yep. Okay.
So yeah, I will. We'll cover the report control.
With a table.
Yeah, with getting the data in there. Okay. So I'll cut it for now. I'm just going to speak to David to see, because we are going to do a couple of basically like taster sessions. So we'll just go through the basics.
Yep.
And we'll do it with a couple of controls, and then week on week, basically you could take a look. Undoubtedly, you'll probably have a couple of questions for next week, and then we can cover the next questions up until you get to the point where, and this is the same for David as well, up until it's a case of, right, we really get them, that's not a problem, and we can start doing more advanced features with it, and pushing it a little to its capabilities.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No problem. No problem. Okay, David. So one of the things we're going to cover today is the report control and the basics of it. But I was going to say, I think there was more of an. We could probably use one of the simpler ones for getting started. So I think you had an idea of which one. Was it command bar or?
No, really, Pete's interested in the report control. I'm actually interested in that as well. So I'd be quite interested to go through the report control and see getting data in from a table. I've actually managed to achieve that. The only thing I had was the one item, the one part of the process where I hadn't selected the the browse on the extension screen.
That's right, I remember, yes.
Yeah, yeah. That was my one problem. So I've actually managed to do that one. I understand that one a little bit now, but I don't mind having a refresher on that one to let Pete understand it fully as well. But the other side of the report control I wanted to understand was how to populate from a queue. I do a lot of work creating stuff in queues and things like that, and I always just put them in a basic Clarion list box. And what I like to do is the same sort of thing, but with the CodeJot report control. So
Okay.
I built a queue from whatever it happens to be. The actual example I sent you was just literally taking a directory listing from a folder and throwing those details into a queue, and then I was going to populate that into report control just as an example for myself, because it was easy to understand and easy to do. So anything like that, really, anything that just sort of takes data from a queue and puts it in report control,
Okay.
and obviously the one that Pete wants to do from a table. And really, I think just understanding what the difference is between a browse enhancer and a list enhancer, and sort of what scenarios we'd use each of the different techniques for.
Okay. Well, what I'll do is we'll start. I'll leave your mic open, and Pete, we've got your mic, and if anybody else wants to chirp in, by all means, there's no problem. What we'll do is we'll start with a basic report control, manually putting the data in, which you might have a requirement to. Some people do.
Yes, I'll definitely have a requirement for that sort of thing at some stage.
So we'll do that. Then that'll lead into using the enhancers, and you'll see from the methods we've just used how the enhancer takes most of that work away from you. And then we'll work our way basically through the different ways of getting the data in.
Yeah, that'd be perfect for me.
Okay. Right. Well, let me start. Where are we this week? Right. Okay. Let's go in here. New. So, report control training. That's as good as any. I'm going to cheat. I am going to bring the dictionary and the tables in from our example for later on in the in the training. So somewhere the dictionary. And we'll pinch the tables as well. Okay. Well, very simple. Just knock a quick application frame up. So our first one will be manually loaded.
Okay, understood.
So just a bit of groundwork here, just to prep up the basic, if you will. Okay, so I'm going to take a spare copy of that, and we're going to work towards list enhance and browse enhance, and time permitting, we'll even try data bind. Might not have time for that this week, but we can but try. Okay, so first things we do, and we really are going to go back to basics here, but it won't do any harm. We always start, sorry, just 1 second. We always start with the global extension. What you have on any of the templates, so this is the whole template suite, is you wouldn't find the Noyantis controls here if you haven't added the relevant global. So you always have to start with the global. We want our report control. We'll choose a version. I'm going to use 16.3.1 because I've got it loaded. And I don't have to put a license in, but I will show that here in a second. So you choose a version. That will prefix the particular version for you. As with the other products, you can choose a color theme. Some are built in, depending on different products, and some are external. I usually go with one of the Office ones. So I'll go with the Office 2010 and external. Now, if you go with that, you should have that file in whatever location you set it in. I'm just going to go with the working directory, but you must ship that file. It won't stop the application from loading, but you wouldn't have the color theme, so it'd either look very grey or possibly even black because there's no color at all applied. So I'm going to go with that. Default location. Inside of each of the theme files is technically, you can have different colors and color sets, if you will, in there. So all these are listed in the actual CodeJock help, but I always go with the default one of Office 2010 blue. You've got black, silver, and I'm not sure it's aqua, but they are in there. Different themes have different settings, so that's what the style is. From the image resource point of view, traditionally, and we've all probably worked this way, when you add an icon to, say, a window, you have a button and you put an icon on it, that icon gets compiled into the exe. And if it's a DLL, it gets compiled into the DLL. Well, in some of my apps, especially on a multi-DLL app, you might have the same icon in basically, let's say, insert, change, delete. You'll have those same icons in all the different DLLs. And depending on their size, they will bloat the DLL size. So what you can do, if you want to, is specify where to go and get the icons from, and then it's up to you to manually just go and include them into one. So I do this sometimes I don't. It really depends on the size of the actual overall project. But you could have just a DLL of resources and just compile all the icons and so on, into one DLL, and don't include them in all the others. And that's where it will go and load the icons from. So that's what the image resource is. 99% of the time, people will just leave it set to whatever the compiled output is. And the language, it's kind of obvious, but just like you've got your theme files, the CodeJock controls all also ship a range of language files. Now, these only cover any built-in prompts. Obviously, if you go and add any content to the controls yourself, it's up to you to make them international and so on and so forth. But if your default language is French, you apply the French language there, Spanish, Dutch, whatever. That's where you put the language file in there. That's switchable at runtime if you need it to be, just like the theme is switchable at runtime as well. Okay. We jump now to the registration, and the control historically If you're running anything prior to Clarion 9.1, then you have no choice but to make sure that the control is registered on the destination machine where the application is being run. So you can either have your installer do it, and obviously if you're using Setup Builder, which I highly recommend, then that can do it for you. Or if the application is run with sufficient access rights, the actual template can do it for you. And what that does is it attempts to initialize the control. If it does initialize it, brilliant, you carry on. And if it doesn't, it will attempt to register it. And as long as it's got sufficient access rights, it will do it. If you haven't, it'll post an error, and this is the error that you would get. If you're on 9.1 or later, then I would use reg-free-com. It stops any cross-contamination with other applications. So let's say, for example, you have another product installed on the machine which is using the task panel, but they're using 17.3 and you're using 17.2. Well, only really you can have multiple registered in Windows at any one time, but only the last one registered will post the events back. So in certain circumstances anyway. So it's much better to use reg-free-com. And it also means you don't have to worry about any access rights or registration. So I would recommend that. That setting will generate an extra manifest file, which will be generated in your application folder. And it will also modify your application's manifest as well, to tell it to look at the other. They're called assembly identities, and it will add an assembly identity to your main application manifest, and it will tell it to point to the new one, that you utilize the new one which has been created. So for calendar, it'll be calendar pro manifest, or sorry, extreme calendar dot manifest, and for report control it's extreme report control dot manifest, and so on. They need to be shipped with your application, along with the OCX control, of course. Whew, okay, I've got them registered, so I'm not going to register it here, but that's how you would do that.
Can I just ask you a quick question on that, Andy? When you say that ship, those manifests and the OCX controls all have to end up in the same folder as your exe, yes?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks.
That's probably best practice, to be fair.
Okay, yeah, thanks, understand.
License. Historically, you could work a way where, from a developer's point of view, where you didn't have to have your license, and that's why I've chose 16.3.1a, because obviously I don't want to broadcast my license. But when you ship your application, then you do want to compile the license into your application. It's really a must. Very simple to do. You basically tell it to compile in. Because we chose a predefined version, it calculates and fills in the first two entries for you. And in your CodeJock installation folder, you'll see a .lic file for each one of the controls. It contains 3 lines, line 1, line 2, and then the third line being the validation code. Those two are calculated, and all you've got to do is literally just copy and paste the third line into here, and that's your license compiled in. So probably best practice to do that straight from the off. Okie dokie. Defaults. We'll come back to that one in a second, because that is just for the report control. But all of the others so far are for every control. So debug is the clues in the name. It basically helps you debug your application. It will generate debug view content if you tell it to. You can give it a prefix. And if you're using the Ultimate Debugger utility, then you can tell it to format the output to use Ultimate Debug. You don't have to, but of course it's a much better tool, so I would recommend using it. And the last one is the event func, which is basically the heart. When you're talking to OCX controls, you basically have an event function, which is all the callback information. It's not ticked by default because there's so much goes on, even down to mouse move. So if you've got a task panel or a report control or so on, and you're moving the mouse, it could even output that. So sometimes it can be a bit too much, and it can hinder your debug. So it's off by default, but you have got the ability to turn it on should you need it. Okay, performance. This is basically the locale settings. The first one, it will enforce the full stop or the period for the decimals. Now, of course, not all not all languages use that. Some use a comma. And we actually, I think it was Roberto. Unfortunately, he's not here today, but it caught him out a long time ago because he was doing a particular, I think it was a title on a chart, and he wanted it at something like 12.2, but he in his native language it's 12,2, and he never saw the comma as the actual period, so he put it in as 122, and the titles were you couldn't see the chart. Basically, it resized everything massively. So what you can do here is tick that. It will enforce, get you around any of the locale settings, and it will enforce the correct syntax going to the back end. But it does come at a price, so it slows things down a little because it's switching locales, if you will. So if you are only ever going to ship to users which will use just a normal full stop, or the period, so 12.2 and 12.4 and so on and so forth, then you could actually untick that, and you'll get a tiny bit of a speed increase. Well, depending on the data, actually, could get a lot of a speed increase, to be fair. Yeah, thinking about it, especially if it was, say, a file-loaded report control, then you would get quite a bit of an increase. The other thing you have is in most of the prompts, so let's say a command bar or a task panel or a shortcut bar, instead of putting, let's say you had an option for 7 options: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Okay, and you put those particular options in. Now that's great, that gets shipped, and that's what the users see. But going back to the language option, and any of the built-in languages could be covered. So if you switched it to French, any of the built-in prompts would change accordingly, but not the ones what you've just set. So what you can do is use your own token. And basically you could say, maybe call a token percent Monday percent. Then in a global queue, you can actually say percent Monday percent, its value is Monday. Or if you're in French mode, it's lundi, and so on and so forth. And when that particular text gets used, it will do a find and replace it at runtime, giving you the ability to basically internationalize your prompts rather than the built-in controls. But of course, because it's doing a find replace and it's checking a queue, that also comes at a bit of a cost. So if you untick that, you might it'll be a very small. If you're not utilizing it, then all you're really doing is just taking an if out of the equation. So you wouldn't really get that much of a gain. But that's what that's doing. And last but not least is whether to trap mouse movement events, and that's in the OCX. That is off by default, because unless you really need to go out of your way to trap them, then there's no point. That's just going to cause callback events for no reason. So that's off by default. Any questions on the performance?
No, it's clear.
No, understood that. Thanks, Andy.
Cool, very good. I think that's really it. Yeah, That's it. So the only one we had on here, which was really just to do with just report control, is this. So what have we got? I can't remember what this setting is. Oh, we added this. We added this a few webinars ago, actually. This is a new setting. Basically, and we're going to cover some of this. You'll see some of this come in today. When you do an add row, basically, you wanted to add the row on the screen, but it might be that you're adding quite a few rows. So let's say you're adding 100. You don't want to add a row, paint it, add another row, paint both, add another row, paint 3, and so on and so forth. There's quite a lot of an overhead. So the better performance would be to add 100 rows and then redraw the control. Now, most of the methods, say add control, add row, and add item, so on and so forth, they all have a refresh option on them. And if you didn't add that, the default action would be to get it to paint. This is overriding the default. This is where basically you're saying the default. So you could say, no, I'll refresh it manually. So we'll actually choose that to get the better performance, because we're going to cover the code anyway. So that's if you called, just to be clear on that, if you were to call the add row and didn't tell it to populate on the end, it would take the default, and this is the default. So it still wouldn't paint until you told it to go and populate again. So that is the better one, but you have to do the work yourself.
You're going to use that one when you're going to populate the whole report control yourself, and use this, do it manually at the end of your population.
Exactly. So the 100 rows, we're going to add 100 rows. In fact, we'll do some of this today. We'll add 100 rows, and then we'll just do the populate right at the end. But we'll just see the speed difference if we was to do a populate after each one.
Okay, yep, understand.
And for the data binding, which probably better off coming to this in the future, but basically it is what file drive you're using and what is the default connection. So it's just basically safety setting. If you was to add the report control on numerous different windows, and you were going to do data binding, it's just setting you the defaults, save you selecting them each time. Okay, so we've added the global. I better open up the actual class here, although code completion should help. So we're going to it, and we're going to add a report control to the window. So we go down, and now report control is available because we've added the global. We'll go with that. It's as good as any. There's our report control. And a very simple compilation of that should give us
an error.
No, I need to bring in the I have so many different versions on here that I need to I'll just compile it in that mode. Yeah, don't you just hate it when that happens. Okay, so we're going to here, and there is an empty report control. So that's a good starting point. We'll quickly go through not every prompt because we'll be here for the rest of the year, but we'll cover all the main ones, enough for you to get the data in there. So try and categorize the tabs on the templates to what I think are decent, good default groups of related information. So we can normally have an appearance, we normally have an options, and then we have into specifics of the particular control. Appearance is kind of what you see here. View type, border style, column style, because there's lots of different styles that you can actually choose. and we want lines and no lines and so on. They're pretty self-explanatory, and the options are very clear as well. And when the window opens, we want to select the control once it's opened. That's very good, but do watch. If you have a window where you have two browsers, so you have two report controls, or maybe three, depending on if you're showing an invoice and invoice lines, but you might also have a products table on there as well, that type of a scenario, then you wouldn't want them all to be selected, because you'd see a lot of flicker. You'd basically go into the window and you see all three be selected one after another. So you only want that on just one of them. We'll turn some of these on in a second just to show what the options are. So we'll come back to the group box. And in fact, we'll come back to some of these, because this goes into when we've got data in there. So that's why we'll come back to them. The control does support header and footer rows as well. And that can be can come in handy, depending on the requirement you have. I'll quickly show what that is. Just use the example application. And we should have that's grouping headers and footers. Didn't want actually there. So basically, you can see these lines that are in bold, and they're the separators between the header rows and the footer rows and the main body. So you can scroll the main body, but leave your header and footer there. So they could come in handy. They're the header and footer rows. They could come in handy. I use them for the filter and the search, the inline filter and the inline search. They're perfect, because I want them to be static while you're scrolling through the data. Headers, kind of self-explanatory. Footers come in really handy for putting totals, because you can be utilised, and just set footer text for that particular column would give you the ability to do that. So that's what headers and footers are. We're not going to put them in this one. You could put a watermark behind all your browsers, and the example does show that. Okay, options. We've got our general, and this is to do with the refresh. Now, we said on at the global level to not show it, and the options are here to override and say yes, to override and say no, or to use the global default, which is what we're going to do. But it might be that you want a default to always do it except for one particular window where you'll do it yourself. So you've got the flexibility here to set it at individual report control level, how you want the repainting to occur. General options for the actual columns, which we're going to add in a second. We're going to put some in, but these are pretty self-explanatory. Do you want them to be auto-sized? So that's where the user can click just to the right of the column, and it will resize itself accordingly to the data. Cell selection. So instead of selecting a whole row, you can just select an individual column cell. Whether they can be removed and so on. So we're going to go with the defaults of these. In fact, we're going to skip a couple of these, and we'll come to getting some data in there. So the main one we want to start in is columns. I'm going to put a column in. As with any of our controls, and I think I've said this in a few webinars, when the code jock will create an object whenever it creates a particular entity. That could be a report control column, could be a report control cell within a row, or a row, could be a calendar, could be a command bar option, could be any of them. Basically, it creates an object ID. Officially, that's how you should really talk to that object, but in reality, it's just not realistic. So we keep a cross-reference queue in memory, so that you ever want to talk to a particular, I say we'll stick with column here. If you want to talk to a column, you can give it a meaningful ID and carry on using that, and the class will take care of what it needs to talk to behind the scenes. So we'll have this as column A, and we will call it column A. So that's its name, that will appear on the screen. Visible or hidden, it's pretty self-explanatory. And it's basically its opening width. We'll say we'll open at 100, but don't let it go smaller than 50. And this is to do with, if you have quite a few columns, at what point will the horizontal scroll be forced to kick in? And that's what will control that. The alignment for the actual column itself. Best fit, we'll go with the visible data rather than all the data. And there is a difference between the two. And you can set a column to be expandable. I'll just fire up the example again. And it's in here somewhere. Expandable. The expandable, you can see here, lets you fold that, and it'll say basically I forget what the actual definition is. Oh, it will go over the next n number of columns. So I think I've told that to expand over the next 2 columns. So basically those, when it's expanded, will disappear. So there's no horizontal scroll, you just don't get to see that data. I think that's told to go over the next 3. I don't personally use it. But, well, I was going to say I don't personally use it because I think you can confuse the user. But it depends on whether that column, just a simple scenario, I suppose, would be if that's summary information and this is the detailed, then you could have it expanded out by default and bring it back, collapse it, if they put it in detail mode, so to speak.
Yes. I can think of a few instances where I would want to use that sort of thing.
Yeah,
Really, you just want to give them like a single line of information, but really they might, under certain circumstances, want some additional details breakdown, just showing there.
Yeah, so it can come in handy, very handy, but it really does. It's like anything. It comes down to your own personal requirements from the control. There's so much power in the controls. It really is. Another option, just for what you said there, is the preview. I don't think too many people use it, yet it is actually quite it's quite powerful. Obviously, the likes of like a little email, an email example is very good there. But basically, you can say on each row you can give it preview text. Not every row might have it, but you can turn it on and off at runtime. Say show the actual preview text.
Okay, that's useful. Yes.
So there's quite a lot of little useful features in there. It's choosing the best vehicle for it of what you require, really.
Yes, and what you're willing to educate the users to use.
Exactly. Yeah, you could quite easily scare them. So that's that. So we said expandable. This isn't being expandable, but this is where it would say basically number of columns to hide. So you can see we had an example there where it's 2 and 3. So how many will it go and hide when it's expanded? General options. Do you want them to drag it around? Do you want them to be able to remove it, the size? So you can turn it, basically, you could turn for the overall control, you could turn the auto size on, but you might not want it for a certain column. And the same with allow drag, allow remove. You might have certain information which is like the ID, like maybe a customer. You want the customer code and the name to always remain there, but the rest of them, yeah, they want to get rid of the address, and let them get rid of the address. There's no harm done, that type of thing. They're all pretty self-explanatory, to be fair. We'll come down to a couple afterwards, or in future training. The content, we're just going to go with default, but you can say only accept alpha characters or checkbox, numeric, and so on. Multi-line, so you can have word wrap in your actual content as well. I think one of these is oh no, it's not in edit mode, so forget that, doesn't matter. And for the header and footer, the alignment. So we said about the content, but this is actually the header and footer. Very simple. Do you want an image actually on the header itself? We haven't got any in here, so let me just pinch one.
When you say an image, do you really mean an icon file, or do you mean a real image like a 100 by 100 JPEG or something like that?
Well, it's for the actual column definition. So this is for the column header. So I don't think you get away with 100 by 100. It's only really the probably 1616, possibly 3232. I have never tried it, but possibly.
Okay.
But it could be. But it doesn't have to be an icon. It could be a PNG or a GIF or a JPEG. But they won't be compiled in. So if you prefix it with the tilde, then it will compile the icon in for you. And there's a little tip underneath to tell you that.
Yes, understand.
So we'll have Aston Martin, I wish.
Yeah, me too.
So, but that's about the closest we're going to get. But never mind. And you can override the tooltip, which we will do. And we'll say, we wish. There you go.
We wish. Yes.
And that will give us one column. So I'm just going to put a couple more in so we can see it, how it builds them up. Column B, we'll just go with the defaults. And we'll have C and D, and that will be good enough. The only on this one is on C, we're not going to allow them to move it. Actually, A would be the better one there. Thinking about it. So they're all set to auto size. So although we've said it, we want some to start at 100 and some to start at 50. Because it's auto size, it will take on basically proportionally as much room as it can get away with, and so on. So there we are, our Aston Martin, we wish, column B, C and D. So that gives you the basic report control. We can't do much with that one, but we can get rid of that.
Okay.
So now, straight away, question is, we've just got rid of B, C and D. How do we get them back? Now, you don't want these to go and close and open. So what you can do is add a field picker. Now you can do this stuff manually as well, but users do like the field picker. Now if you notice, now we've got the report control on the window, now we've got even more controls open to us, template controls. And these are all the extra things that can be done. A whole load of extra things can be done by coding it, but I do give a few more controls via the template to make it easier for you. So we'll add a field picker. That should do it actually. In fact, so that'll control whether the when they disappear, where they go, because that's basically where they go. And we'll add a print preview button. Now on these, you add them, you go to the actions, they've got a load of properties of their own, but you do need to link it. Now by default, it'll try and help you out, which is what it's done here. So we're going to add to a window control. It could be a browser or a list enhancer, just in case you are using the enhancers. But on ours, it's straightforward window control. We painted it, so we know it's there. That's the control. And then you've got the different styles, so basically the appearance and so on. We'll cover the other tabs, which are generic tabs to all the products, in a minute. And the same with this one. Link to the report control, show the printer dialog box, and we can actually say about the printer dialog, so we could actually give it some in the center. Noyantis test. Maybe clock. I can't remember. You can get away with that. We'll try. So now if we look at our example, apart from the window's not big enough, we've got that. If we was to get rid of C, it's in the field picker, and you bring it back accordingly. The control
What
support.
actual keystrokes are you using to get rid of the columns, Andy?
Oh, I'm just holding.
Pressing delete.
No. As I move it, you'll see the X appear.
Yes. So you're holding it and pulling it off the control.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I pull down, oh, actually that would have got. But you usually find if you move around, then you'll see the red arrows appear, which will put it into place, and black X to get rid.
Okay, understand now.
You can do the save and restore of these settings, and I'd let our users do that. And basically, if you wanted to bring them back, but not have a field picker, so you just wanted to have a button, then basically you would want some kind of restore default, which would go through either that or go and set everything back to the visible. Because if you remember, we changed C now to say we want our report control, but we want column C to be hidden.
Okay.
So now if we start it, we should have ABD with C over here. So it's all about building up your default look and feel.
Okay. So when you're saying save and restore what the user's changed, is that built into the template, or that's something we need to code ourselves?
It's built in. Let me show you. We go to this, onto the, and again, this approach is basically it's the same approach in all of our products. Okay, so we'll go to this, and no, it's not on there. Is it on options? Yeah. So yes, we want to do save and restore. We need a variable, which we're going to have in a file. I have these files you're welcome to pinch the design of these, but it's really just your own storage mechanism. I'm starting to change a little, but historically I've never enforced any file I/O on you, and especially so I never performed the file I/O, and never enforced any name structures, coding structures, type structures, and table structures, because I believe we're all different. You'll call your keys in your manner, I'll call my keys in my manner, different naming conventions, and it's just each to their own preference. So I'll give you all the hook points, and I'll prep all the data ready for you, and I'll even call them when they need to be called. It's just up to yourself to put in the bit. So we'll do that now. So I'm going to save it in there's a table called save layout. It has a proc name, procedure name, and a report control, because you might have one procedure with two report controls on there, and just a memo, which is just the actual raw data. So I'm going to save it in there. You've got a couple of options, whether include the grouping and the sorting in the layout, yes or no. So basically, if you had it grouped and sorted, when they came out, the next time they go back in, it will restore that same grouping and sorting for them. And of course, as you do updates to your application, you probably add new columns. and you might even take some away. So this is just what you want it to do by default. So if it detects a new column, it'll add it to the layout, or you can ignore it. And if you've taken one away, do you want it to ignore it? Maybe you put it back in the future, or do you want it to actually remove it? So that is where the data will be stored. Now we do get our hands dirty a little here then, because, oh, not in there, sorry. We go to our embeds, and in the report control, when it needs to basically do the save layouts, it will call this. It will say file, it will do the fetch record, the insert, the prime, and the update. So we'll put them in now. So on the fetch record, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to open the example, and I'm just going to copy and paste. Give me 1 second.
So basically what you're going to show us now, really, Andy, is that if we follow this little step that you're doing here on each application that we create or each report control, then it's going to do all the save and restore for us. You're really only just going to tell it how to open and close the file and insert the record.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Understand.
And I to be fair, I probably am going to. I am going to enhance it so it'll actually do the inserting and for you. But I'll still probably ask for some kind of mapping of the keys and the fields, because, as I say, everyone's different. There is no right or wrong. It's just, it's people call their keys in however they want to call them, and so on. So I don't like to impose any particular thing on them.
Yes, I understand you saying that, but really on something as simple as this, and it's something I think we'd all accept a sort of fairly standardized thing there just for doing this. Really, probably the only thing you really need to do is the name of the table and the file driver.
Yeah, that type of thing. So this is basically, that should be a try fetch, but basically this is on the this is a fetch, so it's going to clear it. It's not that one. It's our load manual. So the procedure name is load manual. The report control is just was it? Don't know what our control was called actually. Yeah, just straightforward report control. So it's just going to fetch it. Well, try fetch really. The insert, again, is not going to be rocket science. It's straightforward. Load manual with a try insert. The prime is going to be very similar to the insert actually. Oh, sorry, no, the prime is just clear. And last but not least is the actual update. And that's just a straightforward try update. So really, it's just the IO commands. So if we was to save that, yeah, sorry.
So basically, we just keep those as a little snippet somewhere and copy and paste them into each procedure as we're going along, and all we've got to do is change the procedure name, and if necessary, the name of the report control.
Yeah, I mean that's just my take on it. It could be like in my application, I don't just have the procedure name, I have the user ID and the procedure name, so that if person A goes in, they like to see it in one format. Person B goes in, they see it in a different format, but it's still the same browse. Well, sorry, report control. Mm-hmm. And that's with the power of the task panel, and again, that's save and restore their options while they move them around, and the power of the report control. The users really do get to feel that they've got this system working just as they like it.
Yes, that's very nice.
So we go in. It hasn't got a record, so as we come out, it'll probably just save that. Now if we come in and we'll put C back where it should be, go back in and C's back as it was, we'll get rid of B this time, get rid of D as well actually, and go back in and so on. And our print preview should reflect just that. So there's our time, although I didn't format it, so we should really formatted that. And there's our header that we said.
That's very, very nice from a user perspective.
So it really is a, what is it, a WYSIWYG? What you see is what you get, and that's the all of the controls work on that type of approach.
Yeah, it's nice. I like that.
So we've got some columns, but we need some data. So we'll do some manual loading of the data. So good place to do it would be after it's initialized. So the golden rule on all of the products is init complete. There's certain steps, and you'll see a few of them here, and the steps are init prepare, init template settings. Actually, there's init resize now as well, and I forget where that goes into the order. But yes, init prepare, init, I think it's init resize, init template settings, init complete. So basically there's 5 steps that it will go through. But as far as you're concerned, unless you really have to get your hands dirty, which at some point, you might want to tweak it and do some stuff, then we post a question in here and we can cover it. But majority of the time, late on in the init complete will be the best place for you. So we'll put some code in here, and we're just going to add some data. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to report control 1. I've not changed the class name. Whoops. We want to add a row. Now that takes 3 parameters, as you can see. The row ID, so it comes back to these IDs that I mentioned before. Every entity has a user-friendly ID. So we're going to call this, it's a row ID, whether to refresh, and that's an optional one, and that will be forcing, and we're not going to do that. We're going to go with our default, which we said don't do. So we'll see what the outcome of that is. And the add row will add a row, but it won't set any data. We're going to do that manually in a second. But if you did have a group structure matching your definition of your columns, then it would prime them up. Sorry about that. It would prime it up for you in one go, which would be, again, your fastest route. Bit more advanced, but it would work. So we'll do a couple of things. We'll add a couple of rows in a different manner. So we'll have row 1 here, row 0, 1, and we'll just go with that, and let's see what the outcome is. And the outcome is there's no data, because we added it and we said at a global level and at a local level, we're not going to, we don't want it to go manually refresh all the time. Sorry, you automatically refresh. So instead, we're going to do it ourselves. So we call the populate. Now we've run that, we've got a blank row. Got no data in there, but we've got a blank row. Okay, so we will just finish that off. So our populate will always go down towards the end. And we will finish it off with report control 1, set row cell value. Now that takes a row ID, a column ID, and the value. So ours will be row 1, I think it's column A, and we'll call it A1. And we'll repeat that for B, C, and D. This is the worst case scenario of getting the data in. This is the, as you can see, it's the raw method of getting the data in. So there we go, A, C, and then we put our B and D in place. A, B, C, D. So we've got a row, and you've got a lot of other methods available to you. One good thing to show here. Oh no, we'll cover that thingy. But basically, I use set row value. Sorry, set row cell value. If one of them hypothetically was a date, let's say column C was a date, then the value would want to be your raw Clarion date. But visually, you wouldn't want it to show the raw Clarion date, you'd want it to be something more meaningful. So I'm going to say date here. And we'll add 2 rows, and you'll see where I'm going with this. Minus, I don't know, 28. What have I missed?
You didn't change the row number. The row ID, sorry.
That's correct, but that wouldn't. Oh, it's not date, it's today.
Ah, yes.
But you are correct. We should have done that. Now,
should you also have done add row and change that to row 02?
Thank you. Yep, I'm glad someone's watching. So, from a sorting point of view, if I was to sort that data, that's brilliant. But that doesn't tell the user anything. What I need to do is on that one, override it and set the caption as well. So you have 2 values in play at any one time. You have the value, which is used for sorting, but then you have the actual, what will be displayed on screen. If you only set the value and you don't set that, you don't override the caption, then it's used by default, and that's what you're seeing on the others. But I want on the date one, I want to actually override it and basically say what wording I want in there. And you could use anything you want in there for that. So now we've got that, and from a sorting point of view, it would sort correctly because it's sorting on the correct date value, but showing the user-friendly date value. So one other way, and then that'll be it for the manual loading. We've only scratched the surface, but it's just to show the idea.
Yeah, but that gives us enough to be able to run loops and push data in and things like that to do all of this. Yeah, yeah.
So, and I'll explain why I'm doing this in a second. So, I'm just building a structure similar to how we've got our column set up. I did insert an extra one at the start to say row ID, and that's because there is a hidden column, which is basically a row ID, which is the first one in the structure.
I notice each time you're changing string to C string, Andy, does everything have to be a C string?
Oh no, sorry, no, it's just force of habit. Right. Yeah, OCD kicking in. So So here, I'm going to add row 3. Oh, not bothered about the middle parameter, but I will pass it that group, a primed up group. And here, I'll just prime the group up. So B, C, and D, B, C, and D. Just notice that we didn't change them to 2. So this time, instead of calling this the methods, no, that's not quite going to work for this though, so that's going to be interesting. This will break what I was saying, but okay. We've basically we've primed up the group, and we're going to pass it as an optional parameter on the end.
You're saying about what's going to break is the fact you've got no way to control the caption.
No, not in that. Not on that one. You'd have to manually go and change it afterwards. Yeah, okay. I'd thought of that actually. That's a bit of an omission. But the reason I did it that way is when you added a row before, let's take the row 1. We called a method, add row. That was one call. Of course, it does stuff behind the scenes, as you can imagine. Then we set column A of row 1, then column B, then 2 sets for column C, and 1 for column D. So there's 6 method calls there, each one of them doing other things behind the scenes. If you could call it in one hit by priming up that group, you do get a speed increase. It's one of the things John found in one of his examples, and so on. So you do get a speed increase because you're priming up a group and saying, right, just do it all in one go for me. And basically what the add row is doing is it adds a row and it actually defines each one of these and just sets them all to blank. And then when you go and set them all manually afterwards, you are then going overwriting them. So there's actually not just 6 calls. From an OCX interaction point of view, there's miles more. So what we're doing there is we're cutting out a lot of the dead wood and just doing it all as it adds it with a value there and then. So it is a lot faster.
Yeah, I understand what you're doing, yeah.
Okay, that's one example. I'm cautious on time and I'd like to at least do the queue loaded one. So are there any questions on what we've covered there?
No, I'm very clear on it. I don't know about Pete, but I understand exactly what you've done. It helps me a lot.
I'm trying to keep up.
Well, that's the beauty of the recordings. You know, you can play them back,
Sure.
And undoubtedly next week and the week after you'll have questions. I hope you've got questions, or we've not done our job. So no. So we're going to take that, but we're going to basically do something very similar. What we're going to do is do a queue. Now, just let me look at something not there, sorry. Okay, what we can do, you can point it to just a queue. So instead of manual, we'll have another item. Oh, never called it. Just as we did before, we'll have our report control. Won't bother with the date picker, sorry, the field picker, because we already have got that. And I'm just going to create a queue. I'm trying to remember how I do this now. And the queue option isn't highlighted. I need to look at that.
Yeah, I've noticed that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the exact problem I had as well, Andy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought it was a setting somewhere, but I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I was just looking. Okay, I'm going to... Okay, I'll look at that for next week. Let's jump to the list enhance. Sorry about that.
No problem.
No problem for me either.
Oops. Yeah, because we use that queue structure, that queue idea for the flow graph, for the chart pro, for the property grid, for the task panel. So you can just populate a queue and it monitors. So I've just done the same again, haven't I? At least I'm consistent. So I'll report control again. And actually, let's not do that. Let's put our query in list. Let's just do our query in list, yeah. So I was teaching you wrong there. So we want our, I don't know, data queue. And we will have column A, column B. In fact, just for speed, we'll just have a couple because whether you got one or two, you get the idea.
That's enough.
Yeah, for me, Andy.
We'll have a button on the screen. Agent. I think it's just regenerate. Not sure actually, is that hyphenated? Pass. Okay, we'll come to that in a second.
I think it's not hyphenated.
No, well, it should actually. Okay. And we'll just have a local procedure to, well, it might as well be a routine actually. Straightforward loop, RV counter, 1 to 100.
Enough.
Thought something weird on a data queue. I never do it that way. I always do LQ data. So I haven't a clue why I've just done it then that way. Random 1 to 99. Random 1000 to 2000. Okay, so very rough and ready. We'll call that under here. And well, we'll actually do it in the window init as well, so we've got some data to start with. And last but not least, we'll put that list on the screen. So it's not going to be that big. I'll have it there. Take it from our data queue. And I'm going to actually do this. I'm going to have that as right justified with an indent. And that one is left, and that one's centered. Okay. Attribute. Oh, I must have changed that.
Yeah, there. Yeah.
Oh, it's my own fault. Not concentrating. So there's a 100 records in the queue. So that's that. Now we want to enhance that. Oh, I wonder. We regenerate. Does Clarion? No, it's not redisplaying it. That's okay. Now we want to enhance that. It's already on the screen, so we don't want to paint anything on the screen. We want to add the report control. But it wants to be a list enhancer. There's no file, so we're not attaching it to a browse. So we're just going to add a general extension just to the procedure itself. So which list is it enhancing? It's that screen control there. And basically, do we want to allow edit in place and so on? And we're not going to do any of that. We just want to enhance that list. I will quickly show you that the column now, instead of being columns, is column overrides. That's because it's going to take the columns from the actual list itself.
Okay.
So it's going to take the names from the Clarion list box.
It will take the names, and it should take
from the format string or something like that.
Yeah. Yep. So we can see here, it's taken that, and it's populated to the right, and it's taken that, and it's populated. Sorry, it's justified to the right.
Center,
justified to justify center.
Yeah.
And if we were to make them columns wider on the list, so we are talking to our standard Clarion list now. We'll say, okay, that we want it to be, I don't know, 100. Now we look at our list, and that's 100, and that isn't. But what should happen, I'm surprised it isn't, is it should see that that queue is changed. When I regenerate, oh, I never put a 3 in there.
Okay.
So now that, if you have a look, it's doing it, but it's not until we click on it, and that's because earlier we said our default is to not repopulate. So on this one, I do want to, I want it to, yes, do it after the row change.
It's easy to forget.
Oh yes, that's why you have to go out your way to change that. So now, I'm going to do an explicit refresh on that. I'm still not, unless it didn't take the change. Yeah, I'm going to, in here, I'm just going to say report control dot populate.
Is there any issue if you call that too many times or anything, Andy? It just, if it doesn't need to do anything, it won't do anything.
No, there's a repaint issue on that list. If I go there to the top, regenerate, press top 11, so it's regenerating the data correctly.
But is there code on that button?
There's code. I'm just not. Something's out of sync. I better take a quick look at that, because basically, what should happen is, let me fire up one of the. Let's say chart, because that uses the exact same idea. Oh, again.
Our friend.
And it's the same with that, the thing about the queue before. I have to have a look at why that isn't implemented, but it just uses the changes command of Clarion, so we can see it loaded from a queue, and as you regenerate, it would populate straight away. And the thing is, our normal report control should be doing the same. Just open our example here. So we saw. No, I thought there might be a list enhancer. Okay, well, I'll look at that, but basically that's how you would enhance a Clarion list.
Yep.
So I'll fix that for you for next week. So we added it via, we added it via the extension and all the settings. So if we was to basically, let's say, I'm not sure what other settings we can do on this. We'll give that 100 as well, because it was quite small. It picks up as much as it can from here. Resizable. So if we went to A and said that you're not resizable, then the other one wouldn't be either. So it takes all the settings from the actual main list. So now that we can't resize. Can resize. Oh, it's hard to resize that one because it's the second one. But basically, it has taken the settings as expected from the first one. So that's a list enhance, and then just to round off for today, just to so you can take these and have a play, we'll do the browse enhance. And this really is very simple.
And it just for my brain, the code for that button on that window.
Oh yes, sorry, yeah. List enhance. Yeah, that's select. I'm going to get rid of that because you shouldn't have had to do that. That hasn't the fix, so I'll fix it. But all I'm doing in that regenerate is changing the queue, and it should watch for the change of the queue and act accordingly. I wonder if I just do a display. There's something why it's not seeing the change, and I'm not quite sure why. you have to. Okay. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll give it 10,000. Give it a very big, because what you can do, what you can do on that method I've just put in, is give it a progress bar and tell it to manually go and sync, and it will control the progress bar for you. So let's see. Clarion wants to actually remember my setting for me this time.
But that generate data, it was a normal button, yes?
Yes, oh, just a normal button. Yep, just some code in there.
Okay, if you're sure that you're going so fast.
Oh,
so
sorry.
Is there? Okay, yeah, sorry. Yep,
That's
okay.
Generate, and the other thing I've just done, I've just added a progress bar, which we will hide by default.
Don't bother.
And in here,
one.
I think I changed it to the normal. I think. Did I? Yeah, progress.
Okay.
So now there's 10,000 go in. So if we regenerate.
Okay.
So now it is repainting. So there'll be something inside of it where it's not recognising the change. So I'll take a look at that. But that's one of the options you've got. And what I did on that code is, I'll just show you. Most of them you won't need. But if we go to the class dot any of the enhancers, both the browse enhancer and the list enhancer, all start list underscore. So we can see here. Now some of them are internal. But the main one we can do is the sync rows.
And what's that sync rows doing, Andy? Is it rereading the queue and repainting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The little progress bar is a nice touch, so I like that.
So it's just with lots of data, obviously, it can have an effect.
Yes.
So last but not least, then we'll just do our browse enhance. Just as we've done a couple of times today, we'll add our report control. No, we won't. We will add a browse. We will add a browse. We're going to base it on, I don't know what we've got, customers.
Customers.
Yeah.
It's fine. Yeah.
So we choose our columns, and we will have our customer code. Going to format this up just like we did a minute ago to make it look nice. And address. And maybe just one more. So yeah, that'll do. Give them some sizes. All of them are okay. Yep. So we've got some data on there. It should look something like so. We'll give it at least an index to go through. So we'll put it in. Actually, no. We'll put them in company name order. And I think I'll call it list customers and queue customers and so on. Usual thing, it should have a vertical scroll on it. that type of thing. And if we look, we'll leave it set as page loaded. Compile that, and we should have a standard Clarion browse, which we have. Don't look too pretty, to be fair, but we have. Now, when we did the list, we went to the extensions, and we just added it.
Yeah.
Now, let me just put something else on here so you can see.
You do it on the screen, yeah.
No, you don't do it on the screen. I just want to put. I just want to put some other controls on here, so I'm going to put a close button. Yeah, something like that, and maybe some insert change delete or something, something more on there. No, that'll do. So last time, if I insert there and I've got the close button highlighted, it will only give me the option for a list enhancer because it thinks that you are enhancing something on the screen, be it the list. But if you've got the browse highlighted and then you go and attach it, this time it will ask you, do you want to do the browse or the list enhance?
Okay.
So you highlight the browse and then you select that.
Yes, this was the mistake I made.
Yep.
So Pete, if you do this and it shows no data to display or something like that, it's because you didn't highlight the actual browse.
Yeah, I see.
I went through that a long time before Andy showed me how to do that. It was very frustrating.
I can imagine that.
So we're not going to select anything, we're just going to go with the defaults. So I happen to know that does have a primary key, it's the company code, and so on. So we'll just go with defaults. And now our browse should look a little prettier.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is nicer. Now we're going to just to round off, we're going to add a field picker. We're going to attach it to the browse enhancer, and we're going to override a couple of columns. So we'll add address 2, 3, and 4 in there, but we'll have them hidden by default. So I'm just going to go to our Clarion list. I'll put the other addresses in. 2, 3, and 4 should be somewhere. And we might as well do the postcode just for good luck. Okay. So if we was to just compile that as is.
You already had the postcode.
Oh. Okay. Yeah.
You did that on purpose.
So basically, yes. What you can see is it's a big wide browse. So we'll have the field picker, but we'll have the others overridden so that they're hidden. So the field picker is a screen control. Comes under here. Where are we? Field picker. We'll have that. We'll attach it to our browse as we did before, but this time we need to change its type and we have to tell it it's a browse enhancer. And the reason you do this is it needs to work out the class name for all the calls. If it's a window control, I can work it out from that. If it's a browse enhancer, I can work it out from the browse. And if it's a list, I can work it off the list. But I need to know what to base it upon in the first place. So I'm going to say browse enhancer, and that's the name of our list that we are enhancing. We're happy at that. We'll go with that.
Yep.
And for our actual browse enhancer itself, we'll go to our column overrides. Oops. This time, instead of typing in the actual column, it will let me pick. And of course, it's a column here. So I'm going to say customer 2. Yes, I want it to be 100 minimum width, but I want it to be hidden by default. Sorry, not customer 2, address 2. And the same with address 3. and just hidden. I'll leave the width and address 4. So I've overridden those. So all the settings will be read from the actual standard Clarion browse, but then the actual visuals will be overridden at runtime via our commands, and that's just what we've done. So there they are, but I can bring them in if I need to, and they'll take on the particular width that they should do.
That's a nice little touch.
I think we've got auto size turned on. No, we definitely haven't got auto size turned on. I've just seen this. So that should really be turned on. So yeah, so basically that's how you would enhance a standard browse and basically enhance it, not just from a visual point of view of the browse itself, but the functionality point of view. Basically redundant data, if you will, off on the side, and let them bring it in should they need it.
And I've seen this for the other webinars, Andy, that you had that field picker. Was it in a docking pane or something? So it was on like a little tab at the side of the screen down the left.
Yeah,
pointing downwards to use very, very little space.
Yeah, basically we jump back into our Formula 1 from last week for this. So let's say venues. Then yeah, basically I would have your
like where you got fields at the right hand side there. Yeah.
And then basically you've got, you see there, the type of information where, knowing how some of our users work, especially say for practice management, for dentists and so on, they'll look people up. Mr. Jones or Miss Jones will come in, and it'll be, Miss Jones, do you still live at, and they'll read out the first line of the address and maybe their telephone number or maybe their postcode, but they won't have the other addresses in there. Unless they are, oh no, sorry, I've changed address, then they'll go in and update the form accordingly. But they wouldn't have these on show all the time. They'll you'll go into the surgery and they'll be like, hello, Miss Jones, are you still at such and such an address? Yes, they are, and that's it. So they just need the briefest information to confirm that they've got the right person and so on. But a system, you can't, if you was to ship a system and say, oh, you can't see the other addresses, then somebody will pick fault with it. So using this mechanism, you have the best of both worlds. They get a nice clean look when they're running the system, but they've got all the data should they want it, and it's up to them to tailor their own thing, especially with the save and restore. So you really are ticking all the boxes for them, and you're earning yourself some brownie points.
Yes, because maybe they might want to see just the name and the telephone number rather than even any of the address or anything like that.
Yeah, it's like, I've got email address on there, but chances are they might do if they are collecting email addresses for to try and cut down on postage costs so they can email out and so on. So there's a whole different range of uses. All we can do as developers is give them the options.
Yes, yeah, I like that.
Okay, well, we're over time, but we covered lots, so that's good. We'll continue on with next week, and questions. Obviously, anybody's got any questions, join the webinar, ask them, or email in if you can't attend and you're watching on the recording on catch up.
Okay, will do.
Okay, thanks very much, Andy. Yeah, thank you. That was very, very enlightening, Andy.
Yeah,
I think that's going to help people get started very, very quickly, really.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully. But try some. I'll see what that fault is, because the regenerate on our list enhance should have done just that, but without me having to do. Oh, not that one, sorry. But without me having to manually call the thing, it shouldn't have been required. Yeah, you see. Now here's the thing. That's the speed of that 10,000 rows. I think we can speed that up. Sorry, we digress a little here, and I do need to go shortly, but I can't help myself sometimes. I think we can speed that up.
Commit.
We could use the global, which we know won't do the populate. We won't do that, and then we'll do our own populate. Yeah. Let's see if that's any faster. Actually, that overpopulate would have been probably okay. I'm not actually sure, to be honest. I'm not sure.
Maybe a log out commit, maybe.
Well, it's just generate. There's no data.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's just a straight random.
Yeah.
You could take the time before and after and see what the duration was. With it false or with it true.
There's one thing. I'm just going to have that. Set that to. Make sure it's not growing in size. At 10,000. Sounds silly. That actually seemed faster. It's not the random which is slow, is it?
I suppose the random will take some sort of amount of time, won't it?
Yeah.
Compared to just a straightforward assignment.
Okay. We'll do the same there, that one then. No, it's only loaded once. Okay, well, I'll have a look at why that for next week, and then we'll continue on.
Okay, great. Thanks very much for your help, Andy.
Okay. Well, thanks for everyone for joining. Hopefully you got something out of it, and yeah, until next week.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Bye, Andy.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye-bye.